The other couple of quick things I'll update you on, attached to your agenda here is a schedule. We are going to roll out the strategic plan to all of our employees coming up here starting on August 28th, and you'll notice that we're going to do it by cone. We're going to meet with elementary employees on those dates, and then followed by the secondary employees. So we're going to be busy on Wednesdays starting on August 28th, but we'd love you to attend any or and all of those if you'd love to, or those schools that you represent, as we roll out that plan to our employees. We're excited about that. I don't want to steal Larry's and Brian's thunder. They're going to update us on our schools, but I do want to point out that Mountain View is open for business. We've got a school that is open for business, and we're super excited. And I wanted to remind you about the ribbon cutting ceremony for Mountain View, which will be held on the 15th at 5 o'clock, and we'll meet at the main entrance for that.
Week from tomorrow.
Week from tomorrow, yep. And then you received an email from me, and you'll see a brochure in your packet. That is the brochure that is advertising Dr. Robert Peterson's position that he has not yet vacated and will not vacate for quite some time, but we're starting that hiring process, and we wanted to make sure you had a copy of that brochure so you had kind of the timelines and things like that. And President, if you want to speak to anything on that, I just thought we'd include it in your packet.
We know he's here physically. Is he still here mentally?
He is. Especially if he's got peanuts around. He's very engaged, yes. But anyway, that's all I have for you in terms of positive happenings. We've got some great things. And can I just say, on a side note, I want to give a shout out to the great team that I work with. Many of them are in the room. We are working so hard, and every individual in this room is working so hard to get all of our schools, our 49 schools, ready to open, especially a couple of them. But at the same time, just making sure that we're ready to roll. And this, I can't tell you how wonderful this group is. If you could see them on a daily basis, the time, the effort, the commitment, I just want to make sure I publicly give them a shout out and thank them. Okay? Appreciate it.
Thank you. Larry Hadley, please. The man of the hour.
Man of the hour will take about 3 minutes.
Okay.
Whoa.
That's a lot for 3 minutes.
Board superintendent. Sorry. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. I just want to update you a little bit on kind of piggyback what Superintendent Butter says. Before we dive into the construction and the projects we're doing, we just want to let you know that on August 15th, the last glass will deliver for the last vestibule doors, and then every school in the district will have a single point entry. And those new vestibule doors will have a riot film on them. And so we should have a single point entry, and Tech's been great. I want to give them a shout out as well for helping us and just kind of following right behind us on the doors and vestibules. We did a survey of every building in the district on the opening, and I think we've talked to the custodial staff and the administrators and Mary Jo and Brock. They've done a wonderful job to get us ready to open. So let's talk about the new construction. I appreciate the opportunity. Before I go any further, I want to give a big thanks to Hogan Construction and Westland Construction. They have dug in their heels, and they have vowed to get this thing open, and they've been knocking it out of the park for the last 6 weeks. But as far as construction goes, Gina had mentioned that Mountain View is open. That means we have occupancy, and we've allowed the teachers in, and we did the flooring and the punch list, finished up the roof punch list today, and the floor punch list was done prior. And so the flooring, and we have one more special delivery of the stage floor on the 13th of August, so we can host the ribbon cutting. So I may be laying the floor, so if it's crooked, stand somewhere else. But Mountain View will be open. Let's pivot to Westfield, the high school. I'm going to do this in a couple of parts. If you look at the site, we have a lot of site work, and we've been working really close together with Principal Martini, and he's been an absolute pleasure and delight to work with on this. But if you want to take a tour of the site or drive through, all of your sod will be laid on the softball field, allowing the track and the tennis courts surface to be finished before our opening of the school. All the irrigation is in, and there was an army of people laying sod, so we're pretty pleased with that. All the asphalt and striping is done, and we're going to start moving the Hogan trailers off the site to clean up the front area. So your site looks really good. The last thing we're going to really work on is the driver's ed carport on the site. As far as the building, I want to thank John for helping me arrange and getting our State Fire Marshal Ryan, who's been an absolute pleasure to work with. He came out early to give us a kind of a rundown and early punch list of things we needed at the high school. And so everything that we've accomplished to this point really hinges on one more hurdle, and that is the site walk of life safety equipment on Monday the 12th, and that's going to be at 9 a.m. So if we get through that with occupancy, temporary occupancy, Gene and I are going to sit down with Hogan Construction, and we kind of make the final call on if we find it prudent and safe. But if life safety is in, we're really talking furniture coming in and finishes, and our plan is to give teachers time to move in. We don't think the teachers and the students should arrive the same day. So we want to give the teachers the 3 half days and that next week, and we'd like to start school on September 3rd, and that is our target date from Hogan, and we believe we're going to hit that date. Any questions I can answer on the high school? Okay?
Just what do you mean by the life safety equipment? Like, what does that mean?
You've got to have your emergency lighting, your fire suppression, your fire alarms, things of that nature.
Exit lights and doors.
Yep. And they have to be on a backup generator as well. Let me slip over to Haven Bay, then I'll give you kind of some general thoughts. Haven Bay was on the same timeline. We plan to have Principal Skeen moved in on the 21st. We want to allow the teachers to move in on the 26th, and we want to open to our students on September 3rd. That is all dependent on that life safety walk, which happens on the 13th of August, next Tuesday. So we have Ryan coming on Monday, and he's going to back us up on Tuesday. We feel that he'll probably give us some punch list items, and John can step in. They'll give us some punch list items. But what we're hoping for is a temporary occupancy to get us up and started as we finish those punch list items. When I say a punch list item, these are just some odds and ends that we need to wrap up. Then we will actually come in with Hogan and Westland and punch list the entire building, and we'll punch list it as we're open. I've been talking to the Capital Improvement Committee, and Doug can contest or vouch for this. We've been talking about the difference between open and complete. We are going to be open. We will not be complete. Therefore, that leads me to my next thing is we are going to have construction going on during the school year. We've met with Hogan, and I've met with actually the Vice President of Westland to devise a plan to have construction workers separated from students and off hours. And so we've done this at Roosevelt when we tore it down. We had construction very close to students, and we're going to close 2 sections of Haven Bay to finish construction. So when I say Haven Bay will be open, we have 20 classrooms will be open, but 2 upper wings are going to be closed. And then we will finish those upper wings, and we're shooting for October 31st as a final completion date for Haven Bay. So we're working through procedures with their workers. Since they don't work for the Weber School District, they have their own hiring and background procedures, so we don't background check every sub that works for them. Just so you know, there's 255 people currently on the Westfield site and 105 on the Haven Bay site. Can I answer any questions you may have?
What was the final day you said that it would be done for Haven Bay?
We're shooting for substantial completion, actually to final completion, October 31st. Westfield will have odds and ends in finishing. There's some wood paneling that'll have to go in, and that'll take us months afterwards. So just the sheer amount of wood paneling. Yes, sir.
Larry, just wanted to give you a shout out for all the work that you've done and all the things the contractors they've done through some pretty extreme conditions. They've performed very well.
Thank you, Bruce. We appreciate that. And we've kept the capital improvement appraised of those. There've been some big hurdles. We're working with some entities that we can't control, and Bruce knows we have had some items to tackle, but we've tackled them.
Are there any major pieces of equipment that we're missing at this point?
No pieces of equipment. In fact, Haven Bay got energized on the 29th of July, and the elevator came in today. So we do have some state elevator inspections, and that's a different animal altogether. Yes, sir.
Larry, I want to say thank you too as well.
Thanks, John.
You've done an awesome job. I was in that uncomfortable meeting with you when we had
Yes,
to
sir.
play. I had to have two hats on.
Yes, sir.
But I think the process, Gina, thanks for following through on this, but the letter going to our constituents was big.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're being proactive instead of reactive to an
Correct.
issue. I think it dropped a lot of things. There's still some questions out there that parents and kids are asking. It's
Correct.
mostly kids,
Agreed.
but we only do a high school once in 30 years,
Yeah.
and probably more now. You know what I mean? It's a beautiful school. It'll work well. It'll serve those kids very well. And I think the delay and the plan that Mike has, Mr. Martini has, for bringing kids in half a days on each of those days to acclimate them is smart, very smart. And then we do a ribbon cutting
Correct.
when we're ready to do a ribbon cutting.
Yes, sir.
I think let's show off something that
Show off a finished product.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But nice job on your part. I know
Thank
you had a
you.
lot of sleepless nights.
We
And
appreciate
Brian, if Brian had quit driving on the asphalt, they'd have to
Brian's
quit replacing
great.
it. So
Yeah.
thank you to everybody.
We appreciate that. We just, and I know Mary Jo and Brockman, but if something happens on those life safety days, we're going to be right in Gina's office with some other contingency plans.
I will be to that inspection on Monday as well.
Thanks.
We have the whole office up, except the fire marshal and the governor, and we'll get her done.
I appreciate it.
Good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thanks.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much.
And everybody, I know there's a million people working with you on this, so we just appreciate everybody and everything we've done.
Thank you very much.
Gina?
What will the schedule have to be adjusted for those two schools?
Yes, so I've asked Brock Mitchell and Kurt Swalberg. Mary Jo's not able to be with us tonight, but they're gonna kind of walk us through some of those things, and feel free to ask them questions. You'll also find in your folder a second letter that went out to Haven Bay just today, updating them. So we've included in your packet any correspondence that's gone out to the community, but why don't you two come on up and let's we'll move to that. He's gonna tell you what Mike Martini
Okay,
wants to say.
perfect.
Board Superintendent, I'd also like to just reiterate that Larry and Brian, a big thank you. They have been nothing short of amazing in this process and helping us to get where we are. As you saw in your packet, we sent out a letter today, just before noon today, as a follow-up to our letter that we sent out the last month, just kind of letting parents know where we're at in our different scenarios. We are very hopeful and think, for that September 3rd date. And one of the questions was asked, well, what are we going to do? Because we're going to be starting later and with those 990. What we're going to do is we're going to add 10 minutes to their schedule. So instead of getting out at 3:20, they'll get out at 3:30, and that will make up those days. So they will get out at the exact same time at the end of the year with everyone else. And so we feel like it'll be a minimal disruption to anybody. The kids will still get the education and that time that they need in doing so. If for some reason we do have a scenario too, that if for some reason we on that inspection day that we don't get occupancy, we have put into place a plan that we will have our students at Haven Bay be split into two different schools, which would be Hooper and Canesville. We've already have the classroom set ready to go. We've already been there. We're ready to go to move if that is the case. But we're very hopeful that it's going to be right at Haven Bay. So, what questions do you have?
Will the same be at the high school then for the schedule change?
Yes, we've got a little bit of a different layout for the high schools because of the 990 and the way that the periods break down there. It was alluded to, and let me just run through kind of the next week to 2 weeks for the high school, if that's okay, just to give you an idea of what they're planning overall. We had originally sent out a letter to the community that mentioned that August 12th date is kind of our key date So we're going to update the community once we know the direction we're going after that. But the plan is we still have our teachers returning back on the 15th. They're meeting at the transportation office as a faculty, so that's going to be their first faculty meeting. We're going to bring them back on time. The 16th, they're going to be meeting at Mountain View. Mountain View and Westfield are going through a group called High Reliability Schools, and so they're doing some faculty training, whole school training for those two. Is just a way to kick off the schools with a new focus. So they're going to be there for that. The 19th, assuming all of this works out the way we're hoping. 19th is when our administrators and office staff will be able to start entering the building and getting things put together as they see fit. The 19th through the 23rd, we're going to ask our teachers to start prepping their online Canvas platform and have them work from home remotely, making sure they're getting themselves ready. Mr. Martini's done a really nice job of laying the expectation for them, and one of those things being on the 23rd to publish those expectations and all the work online. That way the students have access to everything in their class. We don't want to take away that time that all of our other teachers have to prepare things, so we've asked them to do that at home and get that ready. The 23rd, 26th, one of those that Friday, Monday, those teachers will then have that opportunity to start coming into the building and have that in-building time to get things set up with a plan of them putting together what's called mentoring periods. So our secondary schools have advisory classes. Westfield's going to do it as a mentoring period. So the teachers that have these sophomores this year are going to have those same group of sophomores all the way through graduation. That way they can build those relationships and have someone looking out for them. Obviously that's a focus that we have within the strategic plan, is that we have caring adults on our campuses that watch for these kids. And so Mr. Martini's asked that on the 23rd, let me rephrase that, on the 26th, 27th, and 28th, so the day the teachers come back without students, that those teachers actually call home and welcome those students back for their orientations, so that there's that connection before the kids even step foot on campus. And then on the 29th, from 9 to 11, our seniors are going to be welcomed in to meet with their mentor teacher and then tour the school. So we're doing this in small groups, so it's not just a shock and awe. We've got all these 1,200 students at once. We want to bring them back in phases so those teachers can walk them around and get them familiar with the school, because it's going to be brand new for the teachers as well. So it's going to be a really powerful thing for them. On that same day, the juniors are going to come back from 12 to 2, and we appreciate transportation working with us to set up these bus routes to make sure that the students have transportation to get themselves on campus so they can get a feel for that. So seniors and juniors on that 29th, 30th will be the sophomores, and bring them back in as well and help them just see what Westfield's all about. And then the first day of school for everyone would be that September 3rd. To address the schedule, we are going to be able, because if this all works out and we're able to bring those students back onto campus, we are going to have to extend the day throughout the course of the year, but we're going to do that at the start of the day. And we're going to add 5 minutes to the beginning of the school day and still get out of school at the same time of 2:30 as all of other secondary schools. So that's where we would add in that time. We still hit our 9:90. Westfield has a 25-minute advisory period where some other schools have a little bit longer, so the instruction time is not impacted in the actual classes. It's the advisory classes that the adjustment is being taken from. Any questions on the secondary school?
Are you extending the hours from when they walk from seminary to the north side of Ogden by the time they get to that school?
They call it, there's Ubers in the parking lot.
Ubers, we probably got those lime
study on that to
scooters.
see exactly what we need to
How many
do.
steps?
So, yeah.
That's a long hike.
Yeah.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
So with the mentoring program, are we rolling that out into our other high schools, or is it just starting at Westfield this year?
So Westfield is putting that in. For our advisories, our schools kind of design those to see what they need within their schools. They talk with their staff. Some of them are more test makeup. We're going to do some character ed in all of our schools during those class periods, some lessons. We ask our teachers to monitor grades, check in on things. It's a class where a lot of times our students use it to make up missing work.
No, I understand that, but I mean, when you talk about sophomores being assigned to a teacher and those teachers contacting them and
That one's
or is
unique.
that's
That's
just
unique
Westfield?
to Westfield this
Okay.
year. Yeah.
Kelly, if that takes off and we see some positive benefits, we'll be asking for some adjustments.
Wonderful, thank you. There's a lot of irons in the fire, isn't there? Technical Services, Jennifer, please.
As tall as a rock. There we go. There are so many amazing things happening in our district. President Woodison and board, you should know how fabulous Gina is and the leadership messages she's taken us through, and the new teacher orientation today, and the efforts with these buildings. Like, this is a great place to be. It really is. And what I have to talk with you about is a seemingly kind of small effort that we're undertaking in our department right now, but I think it's a very public effort. We are going to go ahead and update our district website. We're going to update the look and feel of that, including colors, logos, menus. It's just going to feel very new, fresh, and modern. So we're excited about that. This includes a purchase that you had approved for a product called Aptigee. We are down the road with this product. It's replacing a product that we use right now called Joomla, that is kind of the driving force between all of our websites across our district. We are working with Aptigee for the design of the new website, and we're starting with the district site. We are hoping for a launch actually within the next 3 weeks, if we can get everything in order quick enough. Aptigee also will roll out to our schools, so by the end of this school year, all of our school websites will be branded in accordance with our district layout, and also be very connected to our district site. Aptigee allows us to take things that are posted on school sites and things that are posted by schools on social media and bring that all into one district platform where we can easily pull and house all of the positive things that are happening in our district within our district site. The communications and community engagement team that was just created is also actively working on all of this. I just get to be the website and technical side of it. So as part of that, we wanted to show to you tonight the logos and some of the color options that we have right now. Jeff Brooks within the technical department is the mastermind between these options, and he's done a phenomenal job. So you'll see, I'm going to show you several options. You'll see up above the logo in different colors, and then the black and white version at the bottom of each slide. So the color is a little bit off on the screen, but you can see here, this is option number 1. We're going to ask for your feedback on these two. I think you've got a copy of these in your packet. We're actually going to ask you to kind of vote for one so we can get your feedback. We've been throwing this out to lots of people around the district. So you can kind of look at the colors on the printout. I think the colors on the screen will be a little bit closer to the actual colors. But this is option number 1. This is just an updated version of our current logo and colors. The difference is that the line of the apple is thinner, and that we've actually added a teal color in there. That top apple is more of a teal color, which on our website, if we went with this option, our main colors would be a light gray and a teal, and the red and the green would become accent colors so that they're not quite so harsh when you look at the site. Our second option is this mountain version, which is supposed to mirror the mountains that we see behind us in our district. It's, again, in the black and white version, just adds kind of that simple line through the middle, but gives us a little bit different take on the apple. I should mention that we did decide to stay with the apple logo just because of the deep history that it has within our district. We looked at making some major changes, but as we looked around, both in our state and out of our state, there are not many districts who utilize the apple, and we feel like that's kind of a recognizable symbol for Weber School District. So these will all be variations on the apple. The next version, Gina and the superintendency had asked us if we could make something a little more mountainy. So this is the more mountainy version of the mountain. Kind of gives us some more distinct peaks in there and makes the line, really distinguishable for the mountain going through. It gives us some more color options up in the logo too, some more variation there. Our third option is another mountain option, but added in is what's supposed to represent the bay out there. So you can see kind of Willard Bay at the base of those mountains. So There's another option, kind of gives us a lot more color options within the Apple and makes the black and white version just a little bit more busy and artistic. So I like that version as well. The next version also has the mountains. These are the snow-capped mountains that we have quite a bit of the year around us. So this is another version, gives us a third color within that apple to work with. And then our final version veers away from the mountain idea. This is a simpler look, a cleaner look, a little bit, to be honest, kind of where graphics are headed. And these two lines within the apple are to represent the Weaver River and the Ogden River that run through our school district. The colors kind of help us represent the north end, the south end, and the west side of our district too, along with the possibility of the idea of inclusion, of all of these several different colors included there together within the apple. So that's what we have so far. It might not be that we end exactly on one of these, but these are our options at this point. My last slide has a couple of different color options on it too. These would be the color palettes used on the website and also within the logo, and could be used in any variation on the logo that I presented. So what we're asking for tonight is just maybe for you to put your initials by the logo that you like the most and the color scheme that you like the most, and we'll take that back, and we're gathering feedback from all over the district on what people prefer. But this is an exciting change, and I'll be excited to show you the new website hopefully in the next couple months. So, okay. Okay.
Wonderful, that's awesome. Everyone's been busy during the summer, haven't they? Great job, thank you. Lane Findley, please.
Superintendent, board, it's a pleasure to take a few minutes and talk about school safety and security. I can get very, very long-winded, especially when I start talking about guardians, and so I will try to keep it brief. Real quick, I do need to recognize safety is a very big umbrella, and it encompasses every department, every school, almost everything we do in the district. There's always seems to be a safety element. And there are so many things that go on behind the scenes, and I need to express the appreciation I have for all of our departments, particularly when we talk about safety upgrades at our schools and having to bring facilities in, because we do a lot of the work in-house to save money, and tech services when we're talking about electronic access and cameras and audio enhancement. And there's so many elements to safety and so many different layers, and none of this could take place if there wasn't that cooperation between all the different departments. And I just can't tell you how much it means to me when I go to Larry and Brian and Cody or Jen and Casey, Jennifer Warren in student services, when we're talking about threat assessment and training all of our administrators, mental health therapists, safety specialists, SROs. There's so much that goes into this, and the answer is never no, we can't do it. It's just how can we do it? And I just really appreciate everyone in this room and what it takes to keep our kids safe and keep our schools safe. So with that, we've done, I believe, some tremendous work over the last probably 5 or 6 years when it comes to school safety. And so we're way ahead of the curve as far as a lot of the initiatives and mandates that we're seeing. As Larry mentioned, we're finishing up our secure entryways, single point entry with our secure vestibules. That's been an ongoing project. Most of that work has been completed in-house by our facilities department. You're probably going to see mandates down the road that require that in every building, and so we were way ahead as far as that. Some of the new things that we're looking at as we move forward, of course, many of you are familiar with HB 84, which is the school safety amendments. There's a lot of complexities in that, and there are a couple of mandates. The two big ones that we're working on and need to be concerned with moving forward. One is requiring every classroom to have panic alert devices that are wearable. So your teachers have to have a device that they wear, and if there's an emergency, they can activate that. And that emergency activation, and as you start to think about this in your mind, there are a lot of things that happen where we need people there to assist. Occasionally there's something that happens that's a real emergency where we need a full response. And so the way the law's written, that device has to notify dispatch directly if there is an emergency. And so there's a lot of work that's going to take place. Our system that we're using, that we've been installing, is Audio Enhancement. If you're familiar with that, it's a voice amplification system, so it assists with teaching in the classroom. It's also connected to the PA system. It has the panic alert button. And so that is being installed. We're just, I think, over about 40% complete with our schools. It's a big ticket item. It's not cheap. When we talk about a high school, we can be looking at $800,000 to be able to install that system. We were fortunate last year there was a school safety grant that helped pay for some of it, and it was about $2 million. We also tapped into semester 3 funding to cover what that grant didn't cover, and so there is also another grant opportunity that's going to become available this school year that will help assist with that. But we've got a lot of work to do on that front. Like I said, it's a big endeavor. It requires a lot of work from our tech services department in that installation and supporting it on the back end. But that's one of the mandates under HB 84, and so we'll continue to work towards meeting that goal of having all of our schools equipped with that. The second big piece, and this is a piece that I think has the most attention, is the Guardian portion of the bill. If you're familiar with what the requirements are, every school eventually is going to be required to have an armed person on campus, bell to bell. And the current bill, this current law, allows for 3 options. The first one is a volunteer school employee who will carry concealed with the purpose of engaging in active threat. So if there was an active shooter, their responsibility would be to engage that shooter. This is a volunteer position. There's no funding behind it. They will receive a one-time $500 stipend. And then the sheriff's office is actually tasked with training them on firearms proficiency, active shooter response. And so there is a lot of work that will go into the training piece of it. That's option 1.
Is that a yearly training?
Yes, it'll be a yearly requirement as far as what that training curriculum looks like. So there's also a background check that they have to go through, psychological, to make sure that they're competent to be able to carry a firearm. There are lots and lots of questions about this right now. In fact, I've done interviews with KUTV and with KSL today just on the Guardian program, so a lot of questions. That's option 1. Option 2 is armed private security guards. So think of contracting out to have an armed guard. The third option is law enforcement having school resource officers. The tricky piece is we have SROs in all of our secondary schools, but as the way the bill is written, you have to have a guardian bell to bell. So if your SRO is off, let's say they're sick, they're out on training, you're still required under the law to have a guardian. So the reality is it's probably going to have to be a combination of guardians at every school. So you could be potentially looking at 2 or 3 guardians per school. And so that's going to be a big challenge, no doubt about it. The thing though is that this is not a requirement that we're looking at this school year. There's going to be some time to work into what this is going to look like. The one mandate, the one deadline that we have to meet this school year is every school needs to complete a school safety needs assessment to determine the needs for a guardian. And that assessment has to be completed by December 31st. And so we'll be working with our principals, our school safety teams to have those assessments completed by that deadline. And then we'll be looking to move forward in do we have employees who want to volunteer for this responsibility? And what are our other options? I can tell you right now, in the current environment with law enforcement, there are a lot of issues with recruitment and retention. It's a very competitive market. Officers are bouncing around from agency to agency. There's staffing shortages. There's a lot of challenges with hiring and retention with law enforcement. If I was to go to our 6 law enforcement partners today and ask for 30 SROs to cover our elementary schools, they would probably laugh me out of the room because we're having challenges just having enough SROs for secondary. So there are a lot of things that are going to need to be addressed. I've talked with Chief Pennington, who's the new state security chief. I've talked with Lieutenant Ryan, who's the county security chief. There's going to be a lot of coordination between the state, county, and school districts. And we will work together as we proceed, trying to figure out what this is going to look like. And again, there's no set deadline on when we have to have guardians in place, but I would guess that next school year is going to be a more serious conversation. Questions? Yes.
I really appreciate what you're doing, and I'm happy that the effort is being made. As difficult and as broad as it is, thank you so much. I've been visiting with principals, and I had one interesting response from a principal about safety. Mm-hmm. And I thought that alert thing to be able to wear is really helpful. She says, safety isn't always someone coming in from outside. In my case, in her case, it was a very out of control, non-disciplinable child. And she said he was causing threats to our entire staff. She says, I don't know how many times I was bitten and kicked, and so safety is at different levels, and that alert thing would be excellent to be able to call for help.
Yeah, we're excited about it. That's something we've been working on for several years. It's not new to us, so that mandate, it's just figuring out how to fund it. That's the challenge, and then having our tech services be able to do that work on the back end. Yeah, Kelly?
So HB 84 didn't give a deadline for the guardians?
It doesn't specify a hard deadline, so the big deadline that's in that legislation is December 31st for the safety needs assessment.
And then what are our law enforcement partners, what are they saying in terms of this being, like how do they feel about this mandate at the school level in terms of if we did have to arm volunteers? Like what are their thoughts, and are they relaying their thoughts to the legislature?
Yeah, so they're in a similar boat that we are, that there are mandates placed upon particularly the sheriff's office, so the county, in the training piece of this and managing the guardian program. So they're going to be the ones that have to do the background checks, they're going to have to do the training. There are concerns that come up. How do we identify the guardians? How are we protecting them in an active threat situation? How are they identifiable? Because we know that in high-stress situations, people that are armed are at risk of friendly fire in those type of situations. So how do we best protect them? I think there's a lot of questions on just liability and how that training program is going to look. There's also no funding for the county right now, so they're having to take on that. When you talk about, for example, firearms training with ammunition, there are a lot of unanswered questions that they have as well, and so we're all going to be figuring this out together. Currently, the structure is you have the School Safety Center under USBE, which is more on kind of the preventative side with threat assessment and those type of things. The school safety amendments fall under Department of Public Safety, DPS. That's where the state security chief is housed. They're going to be hiring regional directors this year to help coordinate with the counties and the school districts. So there's a lot of work. We're ground level right now, and we're going to continue to have to work together through this. The other bill that you don't hear anything about, which is really interesting, and I don't want to take a ton of time, but HB 119, which is teachers, employees who want to carry concealed under that right, that the county provide a training program for them. If you recall, I don't know if you were familiar with Sheriff Thompson's program that he had a few years ago when he was sheriff, where he took school employees and put them through firearms training. self-defense, defense of classrooms, active shooter training. It was a very robust training program for people who wanted to exercise their right to carry concealed within the classroom. That's now part of state law under 119 that creates a program that sheriff's offices will run for employees who want to exercise that right. And with that, there's also now those who complete that program and those who complete the Guardian program will be eligible to store their firearm in a biometric safe in their classroom or in the building as long as they're present, which is a big change from current law or past law and current policy, because before, if you carried concealed, you had to have it on your person at all times. So big changes coming when we're talking about school security and safety. Other questions? Thank you.
Do we look like deer in headlights?
That was the very small version that I gave you.
We'll keep the updates coming.
Thanks, Lane.
Lane. Thanks, Lane. Heidi and Heather.
Good evening, board. We have a couple of policies that are on your consent calendar, and we won't talk about them during the discussion time of the board meeting, but I wanted to bring them to your attention. Both of those policies are on the consent calendar because they have non-substantive changes to them. Some of them, it's policy 5200, which is our student code of conduct policy, and policy 4145, which is our school entrance requirements policy. Both of those changes are mandated by the legislature, and we just copied the language and put it in the policy. No discretionary policy discussion. 4145 includes language about kindergarten potty training. It's probably a better way to say that. As students enter kindergarten, parents have to demonstrate or provide assurances that their child knows how to use the bathroom, and that's in all of our registration paperwork now. It's already been sent out, so we just included that requirement in our school entrance requirements. The other policy, 5200, has a number of changes, again, all legislatively mandated or non-substantive changes. We have had several title changes to different positions within our district. So where the policy references a particular title of an employee and that's changed, then we've modified that as well. You can see in the policy 5200 the actual changes that are made, they're all in green. And again, those come directly from legislation. So.
Green?
But we're still working on
I have red.
substitute. That's the bullet policy, John.
No, it's green. Okay.
I have
But we're still
purple.
working on the big changes on that policy.
Yes, we are still working on kind of an overhaul of that policy in general. Did you find it, John?
I got purple,
You got purple?
and I got pink, but I got no green.
Oh, you might not have a copy of that one.
Oh.
That is in our consent calendar. I'll bring you my copy, you can take a look at
It's
it.
on a need to know basis.
I didn't need to know, I guess.
Unfortunately, the reason those are on consent is because there's really not anything we can do about them. We're required by the legislature to have them in our policy, so we put them in, and we don't have any discretion to develop procedures. We just put it right in as it states in the law. And so if you don't like it as a board, then you can talk to the legislature. The next policies we have a couple policies that are being presented to you for adoption on second read. The first one is policy 1135, which is our board policy. This is the one that was drafted last month to help us establish a process and procedures for presenting policies that will streamline the process and help us move through these a little bit faster. We've had no comments or feedback on that policy. The other one that is presented on second reading is an updated policy 4430, which is our student testing prohibition without prior written consent. This is also a policy that we amended due to some legislative changes that require us to get parental consent every year at the start of the year with our registration paperwork whenever we issue any or administer any survey with regard to social emotional learning and culture and climate. And so that language is in this policy. and the procedures that we adopted are in that policy. And we've had no changes or feedback to that policy since it was presented last month. The new policies that we are bringing to the board on first read, we have two. Policy 5201 is our bullying policy. And it may look like there are a number of changes, but really there are not a lot of substantive changes. I'll point out the few substantive changes, but we did go through and expand in previous policy, the way it is right now, the word bullying with the capital B is listed throughout the policy to encompass bullying, hazing, retaliation, and harassment. And we spelled that out just so everyone who reads the policy isn't misunderstanding, and it's very clear that all of those different types of misconduct are included in bullying. We also included some new language around the term incident. The legislature defined bullying incident as an incident of bullying that has occurred after you've investigated it, as opposed to an allegation of bullying. We get a lot of allegations of bullying in our district that administrators look into and investigate and determine either didn't occur or were mutual situations, peer-to-peer conflict. And so we wanted to make sure that as we're training employees and as we're documenting incidents and reporting those to the state, that we have a clear understanding of what constitutes an incident of bullying. The biggest change in this policy does come from the legislature again, and that is that we have an action plan for every incident of bullying. So when a student has been bullied, that we develop an action plan which really is focused on communicating with parents, making sure parents of the bullied student are communicated with, and we provide a support plan for them, that we also communicate with the bully and the parents to make sure that they're given supports that they need to try to help them avoid that behavior in the future. So and I apologize we don't have page numbers on this, but this is in section Roman numeral 7, letter A, number 9. Finally, on that policy, there are additional training pieces that are required by the State Board of Education, that when we train our staff on bullying and bullying policies, we make sure that they understand how bullying, cyberbullying, hazing, retaliation, and abusive conduct are different than discrimination or discriminatory harassment that is based on a person's race, color, sex, national origin, versus bullying that is not based on these specialized characteristics. Both obviously are addressed, both are handled, but making sure that our administrators and our teachers understand the distinction, because there are different laws that govern those different types of bullying and different processes that we follow. And we are in the midst right now of training our administrators on that. Are there any questions on that bullying policy? This is first read, and so as we go through the month, if we get any feedback, we'll be sure to let you know next month. The last policy that is also on our first read is our GRAMA policy, the Government Records Access Management Act policy. We realized as we were going through some legislative changes to update this policy that we have provided a step in the policy that we may not necessarily need or want, and that is to have you as a board act as the appeals body if an individual is not satisfied with the response to a GRAMA request. Under state law, a legislative body or a governing body such as yourself can have several levels of appeal before the person goes to the State Records Committee or to court. And in the past, we have listed in the policy that the board is that appeals body, but recognize that we really don't have a process for you to hear an appeal in a setting that is not a public meeting, an open meeting, which can be complicated when we're working with a specific individual for a specific request. So we've taken you out of the picture, and now anyone who isn't satisfied with the initial response can appeal to the superintendent. And if that response is not satisfactory, then the person can appeal to the State Records Committee or the Utah District Court. Also, legislatively, there is a change, and that's why we started looking at this policy. So the person has the right to request mediation by the State Records Ombudsman. And so that's an additional step or remedial measure that the person can take. Any questions about the grandma policy? Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you. Please, go ahead.
I've got to give Heidi a shout out. Is this on? Heidi has done 3 straight days of training. She has trained all of our new teachers. How many breakouts today? 4, 5?
5 a day.
Five a day for the last 3 days, and look how alert she still is. I mean, this woman is amazing.
I'm just gonna say, my hat goes off to teachers. Honestly, I used to be one. I could not do that today. Standing in front of a class and saying the same thing 5 times in a row is exhausting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and take a break for a few minutes and meet back here a couple minutes before 6, and we'll start our regular board meeting. Thank you.